People spend serious money on wine, then attack the cork with whatever opener happens to be in the drawer. That is how good bottles end up with broken corks, cork dust in the glass, or a cork pushed straight into the neck. A corkscrew is not just a corkscrew. It is a tool matched to a cork, a bottle, and a situation. Before we talk about openers, we have to talk about what they are opening. Natural cork is cut from cork bark. Young, it springs back, but old bottles can turn dry and fragile. A diam or technical cork is different. It is made from cleaned cork granules pressed into a very consistent closure. You can usually spot it because it looks more uniform than natural cork, and it often says diam on the side or end. Synthetic corks feel more plastic and rubbery. Screw caps do not need a corkscrew at all.
A young cork usually forgives you. If the worm is slightly off-center, it still grips. An old cork may not. The moment you drive a screw through a brittle cork, the middle can fracture. Then you are not opening the bottle anymore. You are doing cork extraction surgery in front of guests.
The waiter's friend is the small folding corkscrew sommeliers actually carry. The best version has a sharp foil knife, a reasonably long worm, and 2 hinge steps. It is compact, cheap enough to replace, and reliable on almost every modern bottle. It also gives you something that many bulky openers do not: feel. Before the technique, here are the parts. The worm is the spiral that goes into the cork. The handle gives you control. The double hinge is the fulcrum that lifts in 2 stages. The boot rests on the lip of the bottle, and the small knife cuts the foil. Once those parts make sense, the method is much easier to follow.
Cut the capsule cleanly below the lip. Put the point of the worm in the center. Turn until only 1 curl remains above the cork. Use the first hinge to start the extraction, then the second hinge to finish. Keep the bottle still and lift smoothly. The mistake is not moving slowly. The mistake is pulling at an angle after a shallow insertion.
A cheap waiter's friend can work, but weak hinges, dull knives and short worms make everything harder. A professional double-hinged model does not have to be expensive. It just needs a good spiral, solid leverage, and a clean knife. A luxury laguiole is beautiful, but it is not magic. Technique still matters more than price.
The wing corkscrew is the one everybody recognizes. You twist the top, the arms rise, and then you press them down. It feels friendly because the motion is obvious. For inexpensive young wines, it can be fine. The problem is that many wing openers use a short or thick worm, so the tool does not always engage the cork deeply or gently enough.
Wing openers can push corks downward before they pull them upward. They can split fragile corks. They can struggle with synthetic corks. And because the mechanism hides what is happening, you get less feedback. If all you open is young grocery store wine, fine. If you collect wine or open older bottles, this should not be your main tool.
The rabbit-style lever opener is built for speed. Clamp the neck, push the lever down, pull it back up, and the cork is out. For parties, large dinners, or anyone with hand strength issues, it can be excellent. It turns opening wine into a repeatable motion with very little effort.
The lever opener is large, expensive, and not a travel tool. It also gives you less feel for the cork. On a fragile old cork, that is a serious drawback. A lever opener wants every bottle to behave like a modern bottle. Most do. Some absolutely do not.
Electric openers are often treated like novelty gifts, but they do solve a real problem. If twisting and pulling is painful, or if staff at a busy tasting room need something anyone can operate, Electric openers make sense. Many wineries use them in public tasting settings because they are easy to train.
The weaknesses are predictable. Batteries die. The action can be slow. Some models shred corks or drive the worm too aggressively. And again, you lose tactile feedback. For accessibility, they are useful. For collectors opening old bottles, they are the wrong answer.
The arceau is where wine lovers start paying attention. It has two thin blades instead of a screw. You slide the longer blade between the cork and the glass, then work in the shorter blade, gently rocking until both blades are fully seated. Then you twist and lift the cork out.
The beauty of the arceau is that it does not drill into the cork. That makes it excellent for fragile old Bordeaux, old Burgundy, vintage port, and bottles where the cork has already been damaged. It can remove a cork intact when a normal worm would tear the center apart.
The arceau is not beginner-proof. If you force the blades, you can push the cork into the bottle. It does not work well on many synthetic corks. It can slip on very tight young corks. Practice on ordinary bottles before you use it on the bottle you have been saving for 20 years.
The Durand combines a worm and an arceau. The screw stabilizes the cork from the center. The blades support it from the sides. That combination is why collectors love it. On fragile old corks, it is one of the safest tools available.
First, the worm goes in carefully, then the blades slide down around the cork, then the whole assembly turns and lifts as one unit. The Durand is expensive and unnecessary for everyday wine, but if the bottle costs hundreds or thousands of dollars, using the right tool is not pretentious. It is basic respect for the bottle.
CO2 pressure openers are the party trick category. A needle goes through the cork, gas pushes into the bottle, and the cork rises from pressure rather than leverage. They can be fast and dramatic on ordinary young bottles, but they are not my default recommendation. You give up feel, you add pressure, and on old or fragile corks, that is exactly the wrong direction. If you own one, treat it as a novelty for sturdy modern corks, not as a serious collector tool.
For grocery Cabernet, young Rioja, synthetic corks, and most modern bottles, use a double-hinged waiter's friend. For Napa Cabernet with a few years of age, still use the waiter's friend. For a 20-year Bordeaux, consider the arceau. For a 40-year Bordeaux or vintage port, reach for the Durand. For large parties, use the rabbit. For accessibility needs, use electric. For CO2 openers, keep them in the novelty drawer. A good worm is a real spiral, not a solid auger. The open spiral grabs cork without pulverizing it. The point should be sharp enough to start cleanly. The length matters because the cork needs support through most of its depth. If a worm is too short, it pulls from the top half of the cork and leaves the bottom behind. That is why many bad openers fail exactly when the cork begins to move.
When a cork breaks, the worst instinct is to keep drilling deeper with the same angle and more force. Pause. Brush away loose crumbs. If there is enough cork left, reinsert the worm slightly off the original channel and pull gently. If the cork is already crumbling, switch tools. An arceau may be able to grip what remains. If the cork falls in, decant through a clean strainer and move on. It is annoying, not a tragedy.
For older bottles, stand the wine upright ahead of time if sediment is expected. Have a clean cloth, a small light, a decanter if needed, and the right tool already on the table. Inspect the fill level and the top of the cork. Mold on the outside is not automatically a problem. It often just means the bottle lived in a humid cellar. A sunken, soaked or loose cork, however, tells you to be gentle from the first touch.
Synthetic corks often surprise people because they can be harder to pull than natural cork. They grip tightly, they do not compress the same way, and they can squeak or bind against the glass. A waiter's friend with a strong worm usually handles them well. A weak wing opener may struggle. An RSO is usually the wrong choice because the blades need a cork surface that behaves like cork.
In a restaurant, the tool also affects the guest experience. A waiter's friend is small, quiet, and controlled. It lets the server keep the label visible, manage the capsule neatly, present the cork, and avoid turning the table into a mechanical performance. A giant lever opener can be efficient at a bar station, but at the table it often feels clumsy. Service is partly about opening the bottle and partly about making the moment feel easy. Sparkling wine carries pressure, so control matters more than strength. Keep the bottle cold. Keep a thumb or hand on the cork as soon as the cage is loosened. Point it away from people. A towel over the cork and bottleneck gives professionals extra control and prevents drama. Hold the cork still and twist the bottle from the base. The quiet release is not just elegant, it is safer and preserves more of the wine in the bottle.
The Durand is easy to recommend and hard to justify for everyone. If most of your bottles are current release wine, you do not need it. If you regularly open bottles older than 25 years, especially Bordeaux, Burgundy, Barolo, Rioja, Madeira, or vintage port, it becomes much more reasonable. The first time it saves a rare cork cleanly, the price makes more sense.
The best corkscrew is not the most expensive one. It is the right one for the bottle in front of you. For most wines, a quality double-hinged waiter's friend is all you will ever need. But when you are opening a treasured bottle that has been aging for decades, an RSO or a Durand can mean the difference between preserving history and pulling out a handful of cork crumbs.